Inspiring father discovers incredible teacher's shocking truth about his black daughter at lunch. Michael's heart raced as he drove through the familiar streets of their suburban neighborhood. The sun brightened the pavement, casting long shadows as he navigated his way to the school. He thought about Sarah, his teenage daughter, embarking on a journey of discovery every day in high school. She was bright, curious, and a little uncertain. The pinch of adolescence was new and sharp. Today was special. It was parent-teacher lunch day. The day he'd witnessed firsthand how hard work and perseverance paid off for his little girl. As he parked the car, Michael took a deep breath. He believed in the American dream, having fought hard to escape the grips of poverty through enlistment in the military. Now all he wanted was to provide Sarah with a stable life, where dreams were within reach. Stepping into the bustling cafeteria, it buzzed with laughter and chatter, but an unexpected tension hung in the air, like a storm cloud on the horizon. Parents gathered around tables chatting with one another, but he could feel sharp glances directed at a figure he recognized immediately: Ms. Johnson, the first black teacher at the school. She was known for her innovative teaching methods and genuine passion for her students. Yet, as Michael listened closely, a harsh undercurrent emerged. He overheard a parent nearby dismissively question her qualifications, a casual cruelty that made his chest tighten. What was happening? Why did it feel like a battle of silent prejudice was unfolding around him? Then, another voice from an old classmate slipped through, suggesting that Ms. Johnson had secured her position through something less than earned. The anger built within him, but so did the fear. Could he confront this ugly bias without alienating himself from the community he fought hard to be a part of? As the tension swelled, suddenly Sarah stood up, her voice quaking but strong. "That's not true," she exclaimed, turning every head in the room toward her. "Ms. Johnson is the reason I write stories the way I do." The cafeteria fell silent, the weight of her words palpable. Then came the reveal: a connection to Ms. Johnson that rattled every preconceived notion in that room like an earthquake. She was not just a teacher. She was a mentor, a guiding light. Michael's heart plummeted, twisting with confusion. The whispers ignited, swirling around him like a tempest. He grappled with his daughter's revelation, this moment that forced him to confront his own biases and beliefs about success and race. Here was Sarah, standing proudly beside Ms. Johnson, challenging everything Michael thought he understood about their community and the world. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As he looked at his daughter, Michael felt a surge of admiration mixed with trepidation. The air thickened with challenge, with expectation. All eyes were on him now, asking for his response. A moment pregnant with opportunity. Would he stand beside his daughter, support her battle for equality, and confront the biases that sought to divide their community? The weight of his decision pressed down on his chest, leaving him grappling with questions of loyalty and righteousness. Would he rise to the occasion or retreat into the safety of silence? A profound stillness consumed the room, the moment handed back to him, suspended in time, waiting for his answer. In that charged silence, Michael's heart pounded, every second stretching into eternity. He glanced at Sarah, her eyes brimming with hope, courage radiating off her like sunlight breaking through a dark cloud. She was standing firm, and in that moment he saw not just his daughter, but a young woman ready to take a stand for justice and fairness. Could he do the same? His throat felt dry as he absorbed the nervous energy around him. The whispers seemed to ripple like a wave crashing against the shore, no longer just murmurs, but loud enough for him to hear. Accusations aimed at a teacher relentlessly dedicated to her students. Did they even see her, the person? Did they notice the late nights she spent grading papers, the weekends she devoted to after-school programs, the countless lives she touched with her enthusiasm for learning? With a deep breath, Michael felt the fire ignite within him. He stood, the cafeteria noise dimming around him. "You're right, Sarah," he said, his voice steadying with each word. "Ms. Johnson has changed lives in my daughter's life. She's inspired her passion for storytelling." A few heads turned, surprised at his boldness. Qualifications aren't determined by color. They should be measured by the impact one makes. A ripple of gasps spread through the room, and for a moment, he felt as if he were straddling two worlds: the familiar comfort of community, and the uncomfortable truth of the prejudice lurking within it. But the fire within him only flickered more brightly. Our children need to see that hard work pays off. They need role models who look like them, or they'll start doubting their own potential. With every word he spoke, Michael felt the weight of their expectations shift. Parents who had once whispered disdain now listened intently, some even visibly softening, their arms crossing instead opening, as if holding on to their preconceived notions was all they had left. Then he turned to Ms. Johnson, who stood there, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "Thank you for opening my daughter's eyes and showing her the beauty of words, of stories," he continued, his voice rising. "We owe you respect and gratitude, not scorn." A shift occurred in the room. It was palpable. Michael could see it in the faces around him. A tentative applause began, at first just one person clapping, but soon it spread. Sarah beamed. It was a noticeable shift, not only for him but also for every student hearing those words. The air felt lighter, almost electric, like the moment before a storm breaks into a clear sky. Then, just as Michael felt hope blooming, a quiet voice broke through the applause. It was a mother from across the room, her tone cold, eyes narrowed. "But you can't deny that there are others more qualified." The applause stuttered. A crack formed in the optimism. Michael felt his heart drop. A defensive wall was rising again. Would they backtrack? Would they choose ignorance over understanding? He turned back to Sarah, whose expression showed how shaken she was. It was a reminder that not every battle would be easy, that change would be fought for. Would they have the strength to push through this moment? "Sometimes the fight for equality means doing it together," he murmured, seeing that realization blossom in her eyes. The challenge wasn't just theirs. It was a shared ordeal, one community at a time. In that overwhelming moment of uncertainty and unwavering courage, he recognized the stillness lingering like the moment before a storm. What would be their next step? As the crowd held its breath, he faced those judgmental stares. He understood now. Every story needs a voice willing to stand up. The question echoed within him. Could he and Sarah inspire the change they so desperately wanted to see? Or would the darkness pull them back? Awaiting resolution, Michael stood, heart full of hope, uncertain of what lay ahead. Time hung limply in the cafeteria. Uneasy glances flitted between the parents and the teachers, the air heavy with unspoken words. Michael's heart raced, and he could almost feel it echoing in the intense silence. He was standing on the edge of something monumental. Each heartbeat whispered a challenge. Could he push past the doubt and fear lurking in the crowd? As he focused on Sarah, who instinctively clasped his hand tighter with each tension-filled breath, he felt a resolve solidify in his chest. "We need to talk about what it means to be qualified," he said, his voice slicing through the lingering tension like a knife. "What Ms. Johnson has done for her students goes beyond a resume. It's about connection, inspiration, and love for education." The room crackled with energy again, but it was teetering. A knot of parents, arms crossed defiantly, scoffed under their breath. Others shifted uncomfortably, uncertainty bubbling to the surface. Michael felt the urge to reach out and grab that flicker of hope before it went dim. "Do you think our children have a chance if they never see anyone who represents them? If their role models always look..." He hesitated, searching for the right words, the ones that would resonate. "If they look nothing like them?" That struck a nerve. He noticed a few heads nodding slowly. It was like watching the tide come in, carefully reclaiming the beach wave after wave. Then suddenly, one father stood up slowly, almost as if propelled by an invisible force. "I'm sorry," he barked, his voice rough, "but you all see your color before your character. Every time." That statement hit like a shot. Gasps reverberated through the room, some children recoiling. Parents looked at each other wide-eyed. For a moment, Michael struggled to maintain eye contact. If one person could claim the courage to stand up, maybe, just maybe, others would follow. "Maybe we are conditioned to see it that way," Michael ventured, encouraged by the father's honesty. "But we can choose to change. This isn't just about color. It's about what they bring to the classroom, the passion, the flair, the belief that each child matters." The crowd shifted again, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Indecision was a palpable beast. The roar of it threatened to swallow them whole or propel them forward. Sarah looked up at him, her eyes wide, filled with trust. "Together!" she yelled, her voice ringing out like a bell in a quiet chapel. "We can do this together." That was the moment. The stunned cafeteria responded. One shy girl stood up. A mother linked her arm with a father's small connection, sparking louder affirmations. "We need to support our kids." "Every one of them!" yelled an administrator, her own voice breaking through the din. And just like that, a chorus started. Voices rose, building on each other, defying the skepticism that threatened to drown out the little galvanization that had just begun. But in the chaos, the initial mother who had spoken up earlier felt emboldened. "Our community isn't ready," she exclaimed, her eyes blazing as she stood. "This isn't the world I want for my daughter. It's a risk. What if we fail?" Michael's chest tightened, the storm of emotions threatening to engulf the hope that had briefly lit the room. "But what if we don't?" he replied, stepping forward. "What if we show our kids a different future?" The cafeteria fell into a momentary hush, the unsettled question hanging in the air, heavy and real. Had they reached a tipping point? Anxiety twisted around hope, and he could practically feel the electric charge of anticipation among them. When he finally opened his mouth to speak again, what would he say? What if he was wrong? Would that fear overwhelm the courage they had glimpsed? As he searched for the words that might shift the room again, the murmurings from the crowd began to fade, replaced by a powerful silence. Could this moment spill into something far greater than any of them envisioned? The stakes were rising, and the next words would decide everything. Would he touch their hearts further or simply watch the opportunity? Fate? The crowd held its breath, waiting for him to lead them into the unknown. Michael's mind raced as he felt the weight of the room pressing down on him. Each face was a blend of curiosity and skepticism, hanging on the verge of conclusion. He glanced at Sarah, her small fingers still wrapped tightly around his, grounding him in the moment. He took a deep breath, searching for clarity in the chaos swirling around him. "How many of you went to school and felt invisible?" he shouted, his voice ringing again, breaking the fragile silence. "Just think for a moment. What did it do to you? And what does that feel like for our kids?" A murmur swept through the crowd. He could see faces softening, and a few parents lowered their arms, defenses slipping just a little. A brave mother spoke up, her voice trembling but resolute. "I remember feeling that way, like I didn't belong." "Exactly." Michael leaned into her honesty, feeding off her courage. "What if we strip away the barriers? What if we stand together and embrace the differences that make our children unique? What would that mean for their future?" One by one, they began to rise from their seats. A father stood, tears brimming in his eyes. "We've got to start listening, truly listening." The wave of support grew, a tapestry woven with threads of empathy and understanding. Voices sounded across the cafeteria like a symphony, and Michael felt tears prick at the corners of his own eyes. These were not the nods of resignation but gestures of solidarity. Hope blossomed. "Sarah needs Miss Johnson," he declared with fervor, locking eyes with his daughter. "She is more than an educator. She nurtures potential, ignites passion, and believes in every single child." His heart soared as those words echoed around the room. A teacher near the front, her voice shaking but steady, spoke up. "I've seen Miss Johnson pull kids from the brink of despair. She is the reason why many of them show up with smiles every day. If she goes, what will that mean? What will happen to our children?" A wave of realization crashed over the parents. Decisions made in isolation were beginning to carry weight, and accountability sparked a fierce bond among them. Fear began to dissolve. Vulnerability was replacing it, one heartbeat at a time. "Let us take a stand," a father yelled, his voice firm. "Let us fight for our children's right to be inspired." "Yes," echoed from the crowd, a swell of fervor inundating the still air. But just as hope began to swell, the initial mother who had opposed the changes suddenly stood with wide eyes, raising a hand. "But what if we still mess this up? What guarantee do we have that we won't repeat the mistakes of the past? What if we're all just fooling ourselves?" The air stilled again, the collective optimism quaking in the face of doubt. Michael's heart raced. Her words had weight. What if they did fail? What if this wave of enthusiasm fell flat? He scanned the crowd, searching for an answer. Then he met Sarah's gaze. She nodded at him, her confidence like a beacon. We've done it before, haven't we? We push for what's right. She chimed in, her voice clear and strong. The room erupted again, their voices mingling into a surge of hope and uncertainty. Yes, the risks were real, but the potential was even greater. The past loomed behind him, but the potential future glimmered ahead. As a bond began to solidify among them, Michael felt that one singular truth: transformation was within reach. But as the warmth of this momentum swelled, he couldn't shake the nagging fear lurking at the back of his mind. What would happen when the novelty faded? Would they still find the strength to stay connected when challenges arose? Feeling the energy in the room, he knew this was just the beginning. He opened his mouth to rally them again, but then a loud voice cut through the tide. What are we going to tell Miss Johnson? The question hung over them like a storm cloud, dark and uncertain. Michael felt a chill run down his spine at that question. It rang out stark and cold amid the warmth of the moment they had started to build. He could see the doubt creeping back into the parents' eyes, like fog rolling in to obscure the sun. Would they falter now, just when the first flickers of hope had begun to spark? Sarah squeezed his hand tighter, her small frame reminding him of the weight of their purpose. This wasn't just about Miss Johnson anymore. This was about every child who had ever felt lost in the system, about every dream that had been set aside. What do you mean, what are we going to tell Miss Johnson? He asked, forcing his voice to remain steady. We stand together and we fight for her. We'll tell her we believe in her, and in the impact she has on our kids. The father who had first spoken up looked like he was chewing on his own words, uncertainty clouding his expression. But what if she's not coming back? He countered, an honest vulnerability in his voice. What if the school board has already made their decision? A murmur flared up across the crowd again, a ripple of anxiety. Questions darted from one face to another. Michael saw it in their eyes, the fear of loss, the threat of silence. This was exactly what they didn't want, the temptation to retreat into doubt. He took a solid step forward, his heart pounding as he sought to quell the rising tide of uncertainty. Let us focus on what we can do, he urged, his voice rising with urgency. What if we show Miss Johnson she's needed? What if we tell her how much impact she makes, and that we will not sit quietly while her light is snuffed out? A woman in the back, who had been mostly quiet, stood up. And how do we do that? How do we make them listen? For starters, we start here. He gestured around him, at the parents who had risen in solidarity. We share our stories. We show up at the school board meetings. We write letters. We make noise. This is our moment. If we don't advocate for our children, and for Miss Johnson, we're saying it's okay for them to be overlooked once again. Cheers erupted from the crowd, swells of regained energy. The mother who had raised doubts now looked reflective, nodding slowly. Maybe we can make a difference, she murmured. I know we can, he replied, his eyes searching the crowd for affirmations. We're not just talking about one teacher here. We're talking about taking a stand for every child who feels less than, every Sarah who deserves to feel seen. With every word, energy surged through the cafeteria anew. They were firing up, lighting up with hope. Yet he sensed a shadow lingering, a quiet part deep inside him that asked if this enthusiasm was enough to withstand the trials they would soon face. Let us gather a list of stories, a voice shouted from the back. Let us compile what she means to our kids. Yes, and great idea, echoed in the room, the energy shifting back to fervor. Just as the rally continued, a realization gripped Michael. He needed to remember why this mattered, not just for Sarah, but for all the children who fought against similar shadows. His thoughts turned to a truth he'd yet to confront. Was he truly ready to face what lay ahead? Before we leave, he began, the crowd now quieting to listen again. We deserve to know exactly what Miss Johnson means to our children. Each and every one of us should dig deeper. Who is she beyond the classroom? And what if she's been harboring more than we recognize about our kids? The realization hit like a bolt, a question that hung in the air, heavier than before. Was there a reason each story felt so personal? What secrets did Miss Johnson hold? And how would they change everything? The tension surged as they contemplated what lay ahead. Would they find the truth that united them all? Or would it unravel everything they just built? Michael stood at the front of the room. heat swirling in his chest. The energy of the crowd vibrated with excitement and apprehension, a combustible mix that could spark realization or fracture into chaos. Faces he had come to recognize were lit with determination, but beneath the surface, dim shadows of doubt lurked, weaving stories he feared might pull them back into silence. "All right," he said, taking a deep breath to steady himself. "Let us think about Ms. Johnson. What are her stories? What do we know about her life outside the classroom?" He stared into the faces around him as they exchanged glances, a mix of confusion and curiosity reflecting back. One father with freckles on his face, someone he recognized from the school's sports days, raised his hand slowly. "I hear she has a garden. She loves to grow flowers, says it helps the kids find beauty in the world." The crowd murmured and Michael's heart quickened as he grasped at the thread of connection. "Beautiful," he exclaimed, the words bursting from him. "That's it. She is cultivating hope and resilience right here." Another parent chimed in. "And I've seen her at the park with her own kids, encouraging them to play with everyone. She believes in inclusion." Each statement brewed into a narrative, slowly painting a picture of the woman who had been so much more than a teacher. As more stories surfaced, Michael felt a shift in the air. The doubt began to peel away, revealing the joy of authenticity. Each memory shared, each moment of Ms. Johnson that came forth, was like a small spark igniting hope. "She once brought in her grandmother's famous cookies just to make our kids feel special during testing," someone shared, laughter rippling through the crowd. "She said it was her way of giving them a little comfort." Michael smiled, his vision sharpening. He could see clearly now. Ms. Johnson was a beacon in their children's lives. "We need to gather these stories," he reiterated. "They're proof of how much she cares. Each memory is a thread, weaving a tapestry we need to present to the board." Just as they rallied behind this vision, Sarah, holding her father's hand, leaned closer to him, her eyes wide. "But what if Ms. Johnson has her own stories that we don't know?" she whispered almost shyly. The weight of her question hung in the air, and a hush fell over the crowd. Michael felt it too. What if the teacher adored by all harbored her own traumas, her own reasons for her dedication? What if she had been fighting more than just classroom challenges? The thought chilled him even as it carved a deeper path into his resolve. He shifted his gaze back to the audience. "Right. We need to uncover everything. Not just her light but the shadows too. Let us reach out to her friends, her family, whoever can help us understand the incredible person she is. We can't fight for her without knowing her completely." A wave of murmurs rose, a growing excitement palpable. As parents began to exchange phone numbers and ideas, Michael felt exhilarated. The moment felt electric, filled with the promise of collective action. Yet an edge of fear nagged at him. Could they handle what they might discover? "What if," he said suddenly, caution gripping his voice, "what if we learn things about her that challenge us, stories we might not want to hear about how deeply the system has affected her?" Or he couldn't finish. The air thickened with tension as eyes widened. What if everything they believed about her was shattered? What if their hero had flaws, and the struggle was deeper than they imagined? A woman from the back stood slowly, her face resolute. "Whatever it is, we owe it to her to find out," she declared. "If she's fighting for our children, we fight for her. That's how it works." The crowd erupted into a chorus of agreement, energized and emboldened. As Michael led them toward the exit, he felt the fire of purpose erupt within him. But as he stepped outside, the weight of uncertainty crawled back. Would the truth they unearthed fortify their fight or unravel the very fabric of what they had built? And with each step forward, the deeper Michael sank into this journey, the more he realized the truth was an unpredictable road, one he had barely begun to navigate. Would he be ready for what lay beneath the surface? The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm glow across the school parking lot as Michael stepped outside. Parents chatted animatedly around him, their voices carrying the excitement of their new mission. Yet for Michael the joy was bittersweet, tangled with anxiety. He kept wondering what lay beyond those gathered tales of Miss Johnson. "Michael!" A familiar voice called out. It was Terry, the father of one of Sarah's classmates. Michael turned to see Terry headed his way, a hopeful grin plastered on his face. "That was incredible. I had no idea how well-liked Miss Johnson was. We really need to collect these stories." "Yeah, we do," Michael replied, the weight of worry creeping into his voice. But what if we find out things that shake our faith in her? She's been such a guiding light. What if her story is more complicated? Terry paused, lowering his voice. I get it. But don't forget, every light has its source. Maybe we just need to see her darkness to understand her better. Michael gave a tiny nod, but doubt lingered in the corners of his mind. The next day was a whirlwind. Michael spent hours brainstorming with other parents about where to start their search for Ms. Johnson's stories. They created a shared online document, inviting anyone who knew her to contribute. Every ping from his phone added another drop of hope, but it also amplified the concern in his chest. Let us split up the tasks, one mother suggested at their meeting the following evening. I'll contact the local gardening club and see if anyone knows her. Someone else can check with the school's old staff. As they divided responsibilities, Michael's apprehension grew. Each suggestion brought to light new possibilities, new faces that could help share Ms. Johnson's history. Yet, what if underneath the brightness lay something frightening? That night, while staring at his computer screen, Michael felt as if he were on the edge of a precipice, peering into unknown darkness. He recalled Sarah's innocent question about Ms. Johnson's untold stories, a question that felt heavier with the passage of time. What was hidden beneath those layers of compassion and dedication? He clicked through the document, reading through tales of her kindness, her encouragement of inclusion. But with every positive story, the nagging thought of potential revelations buzzed in his mind. He imagined the collective gasp of parents when they learned something painful about the woman they revered. The tension wrapped around him like a vice. Just then, a new message popped up in email from a woman named Eliza. He hesitated for just a moment before opening it. As he read, his heart raced. Hi Michael, I hope you're well. I didn't know Ms. Johnson personally, but I used to teach at the school and I know of her struggles. Before you go too far in your pursuit, understand that her past is complicated. Michael sat back, breath hitching. What kind of struggles could there be? He tapped his fingers anxiously on the table. The revelation had arrived, unexpected and demanding his attention. Should he delve deeper? Did he even want to? Before he could decide, his phone rang, pulling him from his thoughts. It was Sarah's father, his voice urgent. Michael, we need to talk. Something's come up about Ms. Johnson and it's serious. An icy hand gripped Michael's gut as he realized the journey was about to take a turn he hadn't anticipated. What awaited him on the other side of this revelation? Would it still be worth it to fight for her, to unravel the truth they had all come to cherish? As he stood at the crossroads, Michael felt the ground tremble beneath him. The truth was out there calling. But would they have the courage for what they might find? Michael took a deep breath as he hung up the phone. The undercurrent of fear in Sarah's father's voice rattled him. What could possibly be so serious about Ms. Johnson? His heart pounded as he shoved his laptop aside, the glow of the screen fading into darkness. Outside, the golden sunset stretched its warm fingers across the town, softening the edges of reality. But inside Michael, clouds gathered, growing heavier by the second. He spotted Terry lingering by the main entrance, his face a mask of anticipation. Did you get that call too? Terry asked, concern tightening his brow. Yeah. We need to talk now, Michael replied, urgency spilling from his lips. They slipped into the shadows of the parking lot away from prying ears. Sarah's father joined them shortly after, his eyes scanning the area, a look of unease etched on his face. I heard from a friend who used to work at the school. Apparently, Ms. Johnson was involved in some pretty intense stuff years before she came here. They say she's not who we think she is. Every word felt like a punch in the gut to Michael. What do you mean? He pressed, desperate for clarity. It's about her past. There were accusations. Nothing proven, but they say she had some tough times with the administration. Some people think she should be watched closely. I don't know, I don't want to believe it, but we have to uncover the truth for our families, especially for Sarah, he said, his voice dropping to a whisper. Michael's mind raced. Was this the darkness Terry had hinted at? The idea of tarnishing Ms. Johnson's legacy twisted his stomach in knots. But she's been a constant source of support for our kids. How could she have hidden something like that? Maybe she wasn't ready to share it. Or maybe she thought she could leave it behind, Terry suggested, his expression a mixture of sympathy and caution. Silence enveloped them, pressing down like a heavy weight. The joyous stories they had gathered suddenly felt distant, overshadowed by this new, chilling uncertainty. I can't just let it go, Michael finally said, igniting a flicker of determination inside. We need to find out what really happened. Not just for us but for Ms. Johnson too. If this is true, she deserves a chance to explain. Sarah's father nodded, his face resolute. But how do we do that without hurting her? We don't want to risk everything she has built here, he warned. Before Michael could respond, the faint rustle of footsteps caught their attention. They spun around to find another parent, Ellen, who looked equally apprehensive. I overheard you guys. I think I know more about her past, she blurted out, her eyes wide with both fear and resolve. Michael's throat tightened. What did you hear? Ellen hesitated, her glance shifting between them. It's not just whispers. There are things that she has been through. Things she has faced in her life that could change everything we think we know about her. As heavy silence filled the air again, Michael felt the walls closing in, the weight of the impending truth pressing down on them. Looking into the eyes of his friends, doubt mingled with determination. The journey had begun, and with it the stakes had never been higher. What would they uncover in the depths of Miss Johnson's past? Would she emerge even stronger, or would they be forced to reevaluate everything they admired? As the sun dipped below the horizon, drawing darkness around them, Michael realized they were on the brink of something enormous. Let us meet later, he urged. We need to tread carefully, but we need to tread nonetheless. We owe it to her and ourselves. As the shadows deepened with the night, an unsettling question loomed in Michael's mind. What if the answers they sought wouldn't set them free, but instead bind them to a truth they never expected? Michael paced back and forth in his small kitchen, each step a mix of adrenaline and anxiety. The cluttered counters seemed to echo the chaos in his mind. He stared at the clock, its persistent ticking reminding him that time was slipping away. They had agreed to meet in just an hour, but his mind was already racing with possibilities. He reached for his phone, scrolling through messages from Sarah. The cheerful emojis and excited texts about her upcoming field trip felt like a stark contrast to the weight of their conversation just hours before. He swallowed hard, unable to fathom how such a beloved figure could hide a past that potentially reeked of darkness. A soft knock on the door jolted him from his thoughts. It was Terry, his face drawn tight with worry. Hey, I made some calls. No one seems to know much about her. Just a bunch of vague references. Michael's stomach dropped. What if we're digging into something we shouldn't? What if we hurt her? We have to be honest, Michael. Either she rises above it and explains herself, or we expose something terrible, Terry replied, his voice steady but his hands fidgeting. They both fell silent, each contemplating the implication of what lay ahead. A memory surfaced, Sarah's face lighting up every time Ms. Johnson entered the classroom, her enthusiasm contagious. How could they weigh that joy against the murky shadows of a mystery? Terry broke the silence first. Let us focus on the facts. If there's anything out there we have to know. We owe it to the kids. Right, Michael agreed, but doubt flickered in his chest. What if the truth destroys everything? What if we become the ones who hurt the very people we care about? Before they could delve deeper into their thoughts, another knock interrupted them. It was Ellen, looking resolute but visibly shaken. I found something, she said, urgency coloring her voice. It's not just whispers anymore. There are actual records. Records? Michael asked, his heart racing. What kind? Look, I didn't want to scare anyone, but Ms. Johnson was a teacher at another school, and there were complaints, serious ones. I have some names. The air thickened. Michael exchanged a glance with Terry, both men recognizing the cocktail of fear and determination brewing within them. You shouldn't have done this alone. Ellen quickly replied, I couldn't just sit back and do nothing. If she needs defending, I want to be the one to stand up for her. But we need to confirm these allegations first. Michael felt a pang of admiration mixed with a knot of dread. What if Ms. Johnson was just trying to escape her past? What if this was her redemption? Ellen shook her head. Or it could be a darker side that nobody sees. We have to know. Not just for us but for the kids and for her. The three stood together, engulfed in a looming sense of urgency. The shadows from outside thickened, encroaching upon their sanctuary. Their next decisions could set the stage for revelations that might shatter everything they believed. Michael opened the files on the table before them, a palpable tension in the air. Let us review this carefully. We need clarity, not chaos. As they began reading, a chill swept through the room. What revelations awaited them? Would they find a misunderstood woman striving to do good, or uncover a truth that could fracture their trust forever? In that moment, the stakes felt insurmountable. If they ventured too far, would they be heroes or architects of their own destruction? The answers lay just an arm's reach away. Yet the fear of what came next loomed larger than ever. And as they dove deeper into the murky waters of Miss Johnson's life, a sobering thought entwined their hearts. What shadows would they ultimately cast upon the lives they sought to protect? Michael felt the weight of the room around him as they all gathered for their meeting in Ellen's living room. The atmosphere was thick with restlessness, each face locked in a mixture of hope and fear. He glanced around at the familiar faces, the parents, the nervous friends, and his heart ached with the weight of their collective burden. "All right," Michael began, his voice low but steady. "Let us take a moment and breathe. We need to get through this together." He took a seat at the circular table where Ellen had laid out the records, the potential truth about Miss Johnson. This wasn't just a teacher. This was someone that had woven herself into their lives, impacting their kids in ways they hadn't fully appreciated. Ellen pushed a folder toward the center of the table. "These are the documents I found. They detail complaints against her from her previous school." The folder lay uncovered, a raw wound begging for attention. "But we need to remember we can't rush to judgment. People have histories and they change." Terry murmured his agreement, but doubt hung like a cloud. "But if there's something important here, we owe it to Sarah and the other kids to confront it." Michael nodded, feeling the pulse of anxiety quicken. "Let us read and dissect this carefully. We don't want to unintentionally hurt someone who has been pivotal in our children's lives." As they sifted through the pages, there were claims of misunderstandings, accusations that lacked clear substance but carried heavy implications. Michael felt his heart sink as he read. The journey of unearthing Miss Johnson's past was proving much more complex than he had imagined. Here, Ellen pointed to one of the pages. It mentions allegations of favoritism, but no one followed through, no investigation was done. Does that strike anyone else as odd? They shared uneasy glances. Those pieces of paper told tales of troubled relationships, misunderstandings, perhaps even miscommunications that soared high on the wings of prejudice. But they also whispered of a past that might not be fully representative of who she was today. Maybe Miss Johnson was just a victim of circumstances, Michael offered, his voice firm yet muffled by uncertainty. What if she was just trying to bring light to her students despite a tumultuous past? Terry, brow furrowed, added, "That doesn't exonerate her. What if we discover something deeply wrong? Are we ready to handle that? The truth must come first, right?" "Yes," Michael agreed, "but let us find a way to balance that truth with compassion. We can't disregard everything she has done here just because of what might have happened years ago." As they continued gleaning through the papers, fragments of Miss Johnson's life slowly began to emerge, stories of commitment, solidarity with her students, and a burning desire to help every child realize their potential. The young teacher was not just a name on the complaints. She was a tapestry woven with threads of resilience and challenge. Eventually, the mood in the room seemed to shift. "What if," Ellen said slowly, "we reached out to her directly? Ask her to share her story? Give her a chance to explain before jumping to conclusions?" Michael nodded, feeling the warmth of unity in that idea. "Yes. Let us invite her for coffee or a casual gathering. Let her share her truth with us. She deserves that." The group rallied around this newfound plan, voices buzzing with a cautious excitement, their fear giving way to determination. They would reclaim control over the narrative. They would not let whispers of the past mar the light of potential conversations. As the meeting wrapped up, Michael felt that hope expanding within him. "Next week, let us all invite her to the local cafe. We can chat, connect, and listen." As parents dispersed, Michael held Sarah's hand tightly, her innocent eyes shining with the anticipation of a hopeful outcome. She looked up at him, sensing his transformation, the battle within him giving way to a gentle understanding. "Dad, do you think it will help? Do you really think she'll tell us why she is so great?" He knelt down before her, his heart full. "I think every story deserves a chance to be told, honey. And I believe hers will help us all understand each other better." In that moment, he vowed not just to uncover the dark corners, but to celebrate the light. Rather than silencing a voice, he de-stoked the fires of truth and compassion, ensuring that every child his daughter included could advocate for understanding in place of judgment. At the twilight of a challenging journey, Michael felt emboldened. This wasn't just about Ms. Johnson. It was about themselves as a community, about creating a space where every story mattered. They had a chance to break the cycle, to lift one another up. Together, they would forge a path illuminated by unity. He knew this was the moment unfolding just as he had always hoped. With hope swelling in his heart, he took a deep breath. They were ready for whatever might come. As he turned to leave, he whispered, "Let us do this together." In unison they departed, determined to write the next chapter of their story, one of courage, honesty, and unwavering support. Now is the time for you to join this journey of transformation. Subscribe immediately to the channel, so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will inspire you. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and push these vital stories to even more people. Comment down below your reactions and feelings about this ending. We want to hear from you. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Your support makes a difference, and only true fans like you understand the importance of lifting each other up.